Yo, what's on your way, Ghost, and today I'm bringing you guys another comparison video between the PPSH and MP-40. But before we get into the comparison, I want to quickly wish you guys a Merry Christmas. Hope you guys all had a great time during the holiday, and hope you guys all got the present that you wanted. And I know that on the day of me posting this video, it is the 26th, the day after Christmas, but at the time of me recording this video, it's still currently the 25th, still Christmas. And so, you know, I didn't wish you guys a Merry Christmas in my last video. I'm doing it right now. But anyways, the reason I wanted to make this comparison was because the PPSH, man, this was the clear-cut best SMG in the game for like the first week and a half of this new update. But ever since like a bunch of updates happened, a bunch of nerfs occurred, the MP-40, man, has been getting a lot of love. And now the MP-40 I would consider to be, I wouldn't say the clear-cut best SMG in the game, but definitely the favorite because everyone's using it. I'm seeing pretty much all the good players either use that or maybe even the Type 100. But today we're going to be taking a look at if the PPSH is still good and even better than the MP-40. But before we do that, I want to say if you're new to the channel, hit that subscribe button. We're on the road to 2,000. Let's see if we can hit 1.9K before the new year. That's kind of a stretch, but, you know, a few days, got like a week, maybe, you know, Christmas miracle. Yeah, man. With that being said, though, let's get into this comparison. And here I have the recoil pattern for the PPSH. Now, this recoil pattern for the PPSH is completely different than the ones in my previous videos on comparisons of this weapon. I don't really want to go back and look for the recoil patterns for this gun because, I mean, it's very clear that this gun has a significant recoil increase from the past few weeks. The update has definitely made this gun a crazy recoil. As you guys can see in this clip, like, this was never a problem to PPSH. The way this gun is shooting in this clip, like how it kind of starts to like go towards the side, it's hard to explain, but with the sight that I use and the added recoil, especially with the barrel that I used at the time, this gun, man, it's hard to use. It's very, very hard to, even at close range. It just, the reticle is just so shaky. The visual recoil is insane. The recoil itself is insane. It just, man, it's a very tough gun to use, and it actually has prompted me to stay away from any barrel on the PPSH because I have used the 140 rapid barrel. I've used the other fire rate barrel, and both of them have the same thing. And once I took off the barrel and used a no barrel on PPSH, like, the gun felt really, really just like, it still killed fast, but bro, it was just so hard to understand what was happening on my screen because of the visual recoil. And so I would definitely recommend, if you're still going to be using the PPSH, to not use a barrel. Maybe you could tweak a few things. Maybe that's what I was lacking, tweaking more things to the class setup in order to be able to use the barrels. But man, I don't know. I think if you want a safer bet, just use that PPSH with no barrel because this gun's recoil, it's there. And the updates have just not been doing it any favors because I think, was it the last update, the big update, this is where it got a significant recoil nerf. And I mean, I understand it, but I really felt like it should have been a fire rate nerf or something. I think that's what they really need to start nerfing instead of like recoil and damage. They need to just start nerfing the fire rate because the fire rates are just absurd, and that's truly what makes these weapons really, really good. But I don't know, man. This game is all over the place right now. You can't really expect them to do the best things for guns because they can't even do the best things for the game itself. And so, I mean, trying to wish for them to actually nerf the right things is just a long shot, bro. Because I mean, it just seems like they don't know what they're doing over there. But it is what it is. We're still here playing the game, sadly, in its current state. But yeah, man, PPSH is still a really solid weapon. But it kind of requires you to be careful and how you build it because not every class setup with this gun is going to be good. The good thing is that this gun base fire rate is still pretty solid, so it's able to compete with the gun like the MP-40 even with its fire rate attachments because the MP-40 base or default doesn't have a really, really fast fire rate as opposed to the PPSH, which, you know, actually does. And if you just add on fire rate attachments on this gun, it's just kind of overkill. But I wouldn't recommend it because, like I said, man, the recoil on this gun is a lot more noticeable than the MP-40, so you got to be really careful how you build it. You know, there could be some sort of attachment combination that you could run to make this gun not have that much recoil, even with like a recoil booster, even with one of the barrels that increases its fire rate. But, you know, that's beyond me right now. I wasn't able to find it. I did try a few combinations, and I came with the conclusion that the no barrel PPSH was the way to go. But with that being said, man, we're going to get into the stats in MP-40 right now. And there, the recoil pattern for the MP-40. It's actually very similar to the PPSH, but since there's a difference, or a huge difference in fire rate, the MP-40, man, it doesn't look as bad because it just doesn't shoot as fast. And just in general, this MP-40, even with the recoil the fire rate attachments, it's not as crazy as the PPSH because the PPSH, remember, like the visual recoil, the shakiness, everything, man, it's so hard to keep track what the hell is in front of you, when that gun is literally going God knows where when you start shooting it. The MP-40 isn't like that, especially since I use the iron sight on it. It's I would say a very low recoil. I'm gonna say, maybe not low recoil, but it doesn't have as much recoil, as much shakiness as the PPSH, even with the fire rate attachments, which is insane. But speaking of fire rate, for the PPSH, man, we have a 950 RPM. And then for the MP-40, we have a 600 RPM. Now, these are the base fire rate stats. These aren't with the attachments and whatnot. And I tried to look for the stats or tried to figure out how to get the stats with the fire rate attachments. I just couldn't figure it out. I'm sorry. But obviously, man, MP-40 does get an increase of fire rate. But I don't think it's as fast as the PPSH. And that's the one thing that I will say is for sure. Like, the PPSH, man, 950 RPM base fire rate, that's insane, bro. That's definitely in the top fire rates of SMGs throughout every gun in Warzone. Like 950, man, is absurd. And for the MP-40 to have a 600, that's pretty rough. But the MP-40 is obviously going to get saved by the fire rate attachments and the damage, because that's what it's going to be thriving in, as opposed to, you know, having the high fire rate. And speaking of damage, for the PPSH, for 0 to 11 meters, we have 34 damage to the head, 25 to the neck and chest, 23 to the stomach, and then 22 to the extremities. Then for the MP-40, for 0 to 13 meters, we have 59 damage to the head, 42 to the neck, 36 to the chest, 33 to the stomach, and then 32 to the extremities. So obviously, the difference of damage between both these weapons is absurd. The MP-40, a clear advantage in damage, especially at close range. However, the thing that saves the PPSH even now will have to be the fact that the fire rate is just that much faster than the MP-40. And that's, again, going back to what I said in the last video. The fire rate matters a lot because guns like the MAC-10, if you guys remember, those, or that specific gun wasn't, like, very, very powerful. But the fire rate was the thing that kind of bailed it out in situations where it was completely out damaged. Like in this situation, the PPSH, its only saving grace is the fact that it has a way faster fire rate than the PPSH, or than the MP-40, and you can make it even faster if you put on the fire rate attachment and you're able to figure out how to get a really fast shooting weapon without having a lot of recoil. It's gonna be tough with the PPSH, but if you can manage to do it, man, you'll still be in a pretty solid state against the MP-40. Now, for the longer ranges, for the PPSH from 11 to 14 meters, we have 30 damage to the head, 22 to the neck, 21 to the stomach. Oh, my bad. 22 to the neck, 21 to the chest, 20 to the stomach, and then 18 to the extremities. For the MP-40, 13 16 meters, 47 to the head, 33 to the neck, 28 to the chest, 27 to the stomach, and then 24 to the extremities. So that medium range is still dominated by the MP-40, and even more so because the MP-40 is actually a really solid range weapon. That gun has a lot of range potential. I know you guys have used it at range, and I know it's been used against you at range. And then lastly, for the extreme ranges for the SMGs, 14 meters and above for the PPSH, we have 25 damage to the head, 18 to the neck, 17 to the chest and stomach, and then 15 to the extremities. And then for the MP-40, we have 60 meters and above, 41 damage to the head, 21 to the 29 to the neck, 25 to the chest, 23 to the stomach, and then 21 to the extremities. So the MP-40, man, still a really solid SMG at range, and even more so because the PPSH, man, like I mentioned, the recoil on this gun is absurd. And if you mess up, man, you can have this gun literally shooting like into the goddamn sky without you being able to hit your target because it's just so hard to see with the sight. Now, I'm not sure how it is with the iron sight. Maybe with the iron sight it's a lot better. I didn't want to use it because I trust my sight, but I might have to make some more adjustments because I feel like this gun isn't still where it needs to be. Whereas the MP-40, man, like I mentioned earlier, it has a pretty low recoil, especially with the fact that I'm putting in a lot of fire rate attempts on it. So that gun is still very, very viable at medium to a little bit of long range. And like I mentioned, man, that gun has been used at those ranges. It's possible, especially if you put on the sight as well. I use an iron sight, so it's a little bit more difficult for me because, you know, it's a little bit harder to see with an iron sight at long ranges. But if you have a sight on, you'll probably get away with it in some situations. And overall, man, PPSH, aside from the fire rate, it just doesn't have much over the MP-40, except for maybe like the magazine size, because, you know, I'm using 71 rounds here as opposed to the 45 on the MP-40. But I mean, I don't know, man. The mag size is only as good as how you utilize it, and in a lot of situations, the MP-40 is just gonna outgun the PPSH. And I like the PPSH. This is the gun that I was using a lot in the first week, but now that it's starting to seem like it's, you know, it's past its time now, and I think the MP-40 is definitely the gun to go right now or the go-to gun, my bad, right now. And you know that's the conclusion of this video, man. The PPSH is still really solid, but I think it's time for it to take a step down, and the MP-40 now is reigning supreme over the SMG class, or at least from the guns that I've used, because I have not used every SMG yet. Like, to be honest, I don't really have the time to be and just experiment how I used to. I got work now, and the game itself isn't that interesting to me. Like, this game, man, it's in a weird state right now where it's unfortunate that it's in the state right now, but it is what it is. But we're going to continue to grind regardless. We're not going to stop grinding because hopefully there's better days ahead on this game, and I want to be there for those better days. But let me know what you guys think about both these weapons. Which ones do you prefer and why? And I'm out. Peace.